If you have an immigration case pending right now, a green card application, a naturalization filing, a work visa, or an upcoming immigration court date, and you are watching the headlines about another government shutdown, I want you to take a breath. Because the reality of what actually shuts down and what keeps running is far more specific and far less catastrophic for most people than the scary headlines suggest. But it is absolutely something you need to understand, because the details matter enormously depending on exactly where you are in your immigration journey. So stay with me through this entire video, because I am going to break it down agency by agency, function by function, in plain language. And by the end, you will know exactly what questions to ask, what steps to take, and how to protect yourself right now. Let's start with the big picture, because context matters here. As of February 2026, the United States has experienced a remarkable series of federal funding disruptions in a very short period of time. There was a historic 43-day government shutdown in the fall of 2025, the longest on record. That was followed by a brief lapse in funding in early February of this year, and then, as of February 14, 2026, the Department of Homeland Security entered a new partial shutdown after the Senate failed to advance a funding agreement before the deadline. Now, this current situation is different from a full government shutdown, and that distinction is important. Most federal agencies are funded through September 30, 2026. Only DHS lost its baseline funding. So when we talk about what this shutdown means for immigration, we are talking specifically about DHS and the agencies it houses. And we have to look at each one individually because they do not all operate the same way. Here is something that surprises many people when they first hear it. The single most important immigration agency in the country, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, is largely shielded from government shutdowns. Why? Because USCIS does not run on taxpayer-appropriated dollars the way most federal agencies do. USCIS is funded primarily by the filing fees that applicants pay when they submit forms like the I-485 for a green card, the N-400 for naturalization, or the I-130 for a family petition. When you pay those fees, that money goes directly into USCIS operations. It does not flow through the congressional appropriations process. What that means in practice is that even when the government shuts down, USCIS officers continue to report to work. Case adjudications continue. Interview appointments generally continue to be scheduled and conducted. Naturalization ceremonies may see some delays, and certain operations that rely on other government systems can slow down. But the core processing work that millions of immigrants depend on, it does not stop. USCIS Director Joseph Edlow confirmed this directly to Congress during the most recent shutdown proceedings, reminding lawmakers that his agency's employees would still be paid and the agency would remain functional. Now, I want to be careful here, because USCIS stays open does not mean everything is business as usual. There are situations where USCIS applications depend on other agencies that are not fee-funded. One of the clearest examples of this is any petition that requires a Certified Labor Condition Application, or LCA, from the Department of Labor. If you are an employer sponsoring someone for an H-1B visa, or if you are a worker in H-1B status and your employer needs to file an extension, that process runs through the Department of Labor's Foreign Labor Application Gateway System, commonly called FLAG. DOL is funded through congressional appropriations, not fees. And during previous shutdowns, including the fall 2025 shutdown, the FLAG system went offline, meaning LCA certifications were unavailable, and H-1B filings that depended on them were frozen. During the current DHS funding lapse, DOJ, which includes the immigration courts, was actually funded through the rest of fiscal year 2026, and DOL has also been funded through September 30th, 2026. So for this particular DHS-specific shutdown, the DOL situation is more stable than during a full government shutdown. But this is precisely why you need to track these details closely, because the picture changes with every funding cycle. Let's talk about perm labor certifications. This is the process that many employers use when sponsoring a foreign national for a permanent employment-based green card. PERM is processed by the Department of Labor's Office of Foreign Labor Certification. When DOL loses funding, as it does during a full government shutdown, PERM processing halts entirely. Prevailing wage determinations also stop. For employers and employees in the middle of long employment-based green card timelines, this kind of interruption can have serious ripple effects. It can delay priority dates, push back filing windows, and in some cases, create real jeopardy for workers who are nearing the end of a valid status period. If you or your employer is in the middle of a PERM process, this is one of the first things to discuss with your immigration attorney anytime a shutdown is on the horizon. Now let's shift to enforcement, and this is where a lot of people have anxiety, understandably. What happens with ICE during a government shutdown? Does enforcement stop? The honest answer is not meaningfully. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, received an enormous infusion of funding from Congress last summer as part of a major spending package. That money is separate from the annual baseline appropriations that lapsed on February 14th. ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons confirmed to Congress this week that immigration operations would continue with minimal disruption. CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott echoed the same message for border enforcement. What that means is that ICE enforcement and removal operations, commonly called ERO, continues to function. Officers continue to report to work. Arrests, detentions, and deportation proceedings continue. For people who are in detention, hearings continue on the detained docket. If you have been told that a shutdown means enforcement stops, I want to be direct with you. That is not accurate based on how these agencies are currently funded. The enforcement function has been deliberately insulated from the appropriation cycle in a way that other parts of the immigration system have not been. That brings us to immigration courts, and this is one of the most complicated pieces of the puzzle. Immigration courts fall under the Executive Office for Immigration Review, which everyone in the immigration world calls EOIR. EOIR is part of the Department of Justice, and the good news for those in the current DHS-specific shutdown is that DOJ received full-year funding through September 30th, 2026. So, in this particular shutdown scenario, immigration courts are in a more stable position than they would be during a full government shutdown. However, and this is critical, history teaches us that immigration courts are among the most vulnerable parts of the system when full shutdowns occur because they depend on congressional appropriations. During the fall 2025 shutdown and during the 2019 shutdown, tens of thousands of non-detained immigration court hearings were canceled and rescheduled. During the 2019 shutdown alone, more than 80,000 hearings were canceled. That is 80,000 families, individuals, asylum seekers, and respondents who had to wait even longer in an already overwhelmed system. As of December 2025, there were nearly 3.4 million active cases pending in immigration courts nationwide. That backlog is extraordinary, and every shutdown makes it worse. What this means practically is that if you have a non-detained immigration court hearing scheduled and a full shutdown occurs, your hearing may be canceled and pushed out, potentially by months or even years. If your hearing is in the detained docket, meaning you are in ICE custody, those hearings are more likely to continue because they are considered essential for public safety reasons. But if you are a non-detained respondent with an upcoming hearing date, you should never assume your hearing is happening or not happening based on news headlines alone. You need to check the EOIR Automated Case Information System, available online and by phone at 1-800-898-7180. And you need to consult your immigration attorney before and after any shutdown period. Let me speak directly to a concern that comes up constantly in our community. What happens to pending status during a shutdown? Let's say you filed for an H-1B extension, but the Department of Labor system was down and you could not get your LCA certified in time. Does that mean you fall out of status? The answer is nuanced, and this is where official guidance really matters. USCIS has a history of treating government shutdowns as an extraordinary circumstance beyond an applicant's control. In past shutdowns, including in 2018 and 2025, USCIS confirmed that it would consider late filings of extension of stay and change of status requests as excused if the evidence clearly showed that the shutdown was the primary reason for the delay. But this is not automatic, and it is not guaranteed. You have to file as soon as the relevant system comes back online. You have to include documentation showing the timeline, and you have to understand that USCIS evaluates these on a case-by-case basis. For anyone in this situation, consulting an immigration attorney is not optional. It is essential. Now let's talk about passport services and consular operations. The Department of State, which handles visa processing at U.S. embassies and consulates abroad, as well as U.S. passport services, has been funded through September 30, 2026. So in the current DHS shutdown scenario, consular visa processing and passport services are expected to continue. However, in a full government shutdown, the State Department's situation becomes complicated, and passport services have historically been reduced to emergency processing only. Visa interviews at U.S. embassies can be suspended or significantly curtailed. If you are a foreign national abroad waiting for a visa interview, or a U.S. citizen waiting on passport renewal for an upcoming trip, a full shutdown can disrupt your travel plans significantly. In the current partial DHS-specific shutdown, State Department operations should not be directly affected, but this is something to watch as the political situation evolves. There is another agency within DHS that deserves its own moment of clarity: the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, known as SEVP, which oversees F1 and M1 student visas and administers the SEVIS system used by universities and foreign students. SEVP is funded by fees, the same logic as USCIS, so it is insulated from appropriations-based shutdowns. The same is true for ICE's student and exchange visitor operations. For F1 students and their schools, SEVIS access and OPT processing through USCIS should continue even during a shutdown. This is significant because we are talking about hundreds of thousands of international students currently studying in the United States. What about E-Verify? This is the online employment eligibility verification system that employers use to confirm that new hires are authorized to work in the United States. E-Verify is operated by USCIS, but relies on appropriated funding, which means it can go offline during a full government shutdown. During the 2025 shutdown, E-Verify services were suspended for approximately 1 week before resuming. USCIS has previously confirmed that employers can use the alternative remote I-9 document review process when E-Verify is unavailable due to a shutdown, and the expectation is that this accommodation would continue to be in place. But employers should document everything carefully, because workforce compliance audits do not stop just because a shutdown happens. Now, I want to take a moment to address you directly if you are feeling overwhelmed. If you are a senior who has been navigating immigration matters for decades, and you are watching this and thinking, how many more of these are we going to go through? You are not alone. If you are a new arrival who just filed your first immigration application and now you are worried about what a shutdown means for your case, I hear you, and I want you to take heart. The most important thing you can do right now is to act on information, not anxiety. Here are the concrete steps I want you to walk away with from this video. First, identify where your case currently sits. Is it a pending USCIS application, a DAL Perm or LCA filing, an upcoming immigration court date, a consular visa interview abroad? The impact of a shutdown depends entirely on which part of the system holds your case right now. Second, check official sources directly. For USCIS case status, go to uscis.gov and use the case status tool. For immigration court hearings, use EOIR's automated case information system at justice.gov EOIR or call 1-800-898-7180. For consular appointment status, use travel.state.gov. Do not rely on social media or secondhand reports for information about your specific case. Third, Contact your immigration attorney or accredited representative as soon as possible if you have an active filing or hearing. Shutdowns can create filing deadlines and status issues that require immediate professional attention. If you do not have an attorney and your case is at a critical stage, many nonprofit immigration legal services organizations can provide low-cost or free guidance. Fourth, if you are an employer with workers in H-1B status or in the PERM process, brief your HR and legal teams now. Know where each sponsored employee stands and what filings are upcoming, so that if a broader shutdown occurs, you are not scrambling at the last moment. Fifth, document everything. If a shutdown causes a delay in your filing or appointment, keep every piece of evidence, emails, screenshots of downed government systems, correspondence with your attorney, because you may need that documentation to support a late filing explanation to USCIS. Before we wrap up, I want to step back and offer some perspective on why this keeps happening. We have now seen 3 funding disruptions in a matter of months. The fall 2025 shutdown lasted 43 days and was resolved without the immigration policy changes that prompted it. The February 2026 DHS funding lapse came amid heated debate over ICE oversight following 2 tragic deaths of U.S. citizens in Minneapolis. These are not just budget disagreements. They reflect deep, unresolved political tensions over the direction of immigration enforcement in this country. And the people caught in the middle are not politicians. They are families waiting for green cards. They are workers in H-1B status with visas expiring. They are asylum seekers with hearings that get postponed for years. And they are seniors who came to this country decades ago and are still navigating a system that can feel indifferent to their lives. That is exactly why we are here. That is why Immigration News Today exists. To give you clear, verified, honest information so that you are never caught off guard and you always know what steps to take. As always, I want to be transparent with you. Immigration law and policy is a moving target, and everything I have shared in this video is accurate as of February 16, 2026. Situations like a government shutdown can change day by day, sometimes hour by hour. The information in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice, and it cannot substitute for the guidance of a qualified immigration attorney who knows the details of your specific situation. Please always verify with official sources: USCIS at uscis.gov, EOIR at justice.gov, EOIR, and DHS at dhs.gov, and consult a professional for anything affecting your personal case. If this video helped you understand what a shutdown actually means for your immigration case, please give it a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need this information. Share it with someone in your family or your community who might be anxious right now. And if you are not already subscribed to Immigration News Today, now is the time. We publish daily updates on immigration law, policy changes, enforcement developments, and practical guidance for immigrants, seniors, and new arrivals across the United States. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a critical update. You can find links to official resources, USCIS tools, and EOIR case lookup systems in the description below this video. We are on your side, we are watching this situation closely, and we will be back with more updates as soon as there is something you need to know. Take care of yourselves, stay informed, and we will see you in the next video.